Calling this meeting to order. This meeting is being held in the council chambers, which are open for public attendance and participation. The meeting will also be live streamed for public viewing, but not participation at the link identified in the agenda. Email comments sent and received by the city clerk at least 24 hours before the meeting were distributed to the city council prior to the meeting. Can I have roll call, please?
Mayor Kirchner.
Present.
Vice Mayor Harris.
Here.
Councilmember Boomgarden.
Here.
Councilmember Pasquale.
Here.
Councilmember Shaw.
Here.
Thank you for that. Mr. City Attorney?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have one item for closed session. As conference with labor negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6, the agency designated representatives are Diana Langley, City Manager, Natalie Springer, Human Resources Director, Brad McIntyre, Community Services Director, Spencer Morrison, Finance Director, Ben Moody, Public Works and Development Services Director, Brian Baker, Chief of Police, Jesse Alexander, Fire Chief, Michael Jarvis, LCS, employee organizations are Yuba City Police Officers, Police Sergeants, Yuba City Firefighters, Local 3793, Yuba City Fire Management, First Level Managers, Mid-Managers, Police Sworn Mid-Managers, and Public Employees, Local Number 1. The unrepresented employees are confidential employees, executive services employees. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. City Attorney. Do we have any comments from the public? Seeing none, we will go ahead and go to closed session. Welcome. We're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. This meeting is being held in the council chambers, which are open for public attendance and participation. The meeting will also be live streamed for public viewing, but not participation at the link identified in the agenda. Emailed comments sent and received by the city clerk at least 24 hours before the meeting were distributed to the city council prior to the meeting. Can I have roll call, please?
Mayor Kirchner.
Present.
Vice Mayor Harris.
Here.
Councilmember Boomgarden.
Here.
Councilmember Pasquale.
Here.
Councilmember Shaw.
Here.
Thank you for that. This evening, after we stand for the invocation. After the invocation, the pledge will be presented by Pastor Ciciola. Can everybody stand, please? Pray with me, please. God of peace, we invite you to preside over this meeting. Even if we have different opinions, give us unity of spirit. Help us to each listen politely as others share their points of view. Help us to work as a unified team in combining ideas for a great outcome. Help us to work as a whole rather than as individuals trying to promote their own agendas. May we have a spirit of camaraderie in this room and work together on our shared mission. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. City Attorney, report on closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's no reportable action taken in closed session.
Thank you for that, sir. Agenda for modifications due to recusals, items 11 and 12 will be pulled from the consent calendar and voted on separately. We do have a slight change of plans. Can I have the council meet me up front for a special presentation?
And just for the record, Mayor, we're taking a brief break in order to do this because it's not technically on the agenda and it's only going to be from the mayor over and not action by the council as a whole. Just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
So I'm going to... Am I on? Okay. So I'm going to pass the mic over to Councilmember Shaw for this special presentation, but this is to acknowledge, again, our newest member of City Council.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We started a new tradition a few years ago, and this is about 5 or 6 months late, but these are very cherished items in the fact that they are all custom made one at a time. And we designed as a council a few years ago a council pin that could identify any member of the council And the only way to get one of these pins is to actually be elected and set in these seats here. And so, Mike, on behalf of all the council, welcome again. You've been here like 6 months, but welcome again. We ask that you wear this proudly and remember all the people that you represent and support from our city team to all of our constituents in this city. And continue to do the great work that you've already started. And wear it proudly, my friend.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for that. Okay, moving to the next ceremonial presentation, I would like to invite Pastor Michael Cicciola to come forward from Calvary Christian Center for the Grateful Nation Remembers Proclamation. That's great. Thank you, gentlemen, for attending this evening. Before I give the proclamation, for those of you that don't know, Calvary Christian Center has a tradition in our community. It's been going on for 31 years now. Every Memorial Day, for 2 days, they host an event that honors our nation's past, current veterans and those that have died in the line of duty. And without spoiling it, if you haven't attended, you need to. I've had the privilege of attending 4 times, two in the last 2 years. And there is one part of that ceremony that just gets me in the throat every time. And I urge all of you, if you haven't attended, please consider attending next year. So a Grateful Nation remembers, whereas Memorial Day, we pause in solemn gratitude to pay tribute to the brave patriots who laid down their lives defending peace and freedom while in military service to our great nation. We set aside this day to honor their sacrifice and to remind all Americans of the tremendous pride of our precious liberty. And in 1992, Michael A. Cicciola, lead pastor of Calvary Christian Center, began Memorial Day ceremonies to pay honor and tribute to veterans and military personnel. The memorial display has developed throughout the years, capturing the tributes and dedications of our great fallen heroes from 1994 through 2015. Yuba City citizens and Americans throughout the United States live in freedom because of the sacrifices made by veterans and by those who continue to serve. Now, thereby, be it resolved that I, Wade Kirshner, Mayor of the City of Yuba City, and on behalf of the entire City Council, do hereby recognize a Grateful Nation Remembers and Michael Cicciola for their contributions to create this exhibit for all of the community to come and pay the respects for those fallen soldiers on Memorial Day. Let's give them a hand. Gentlemen, do you have anything to say?
The reason that all of us can gather in a room like we do tonight, conduct the business that we can conduct, is because of men and women who put on a uniform and made tremendous sacrifices. Some of them giving everything, their last breath, so that we could come together as a people and make decisions in a document that starts with the words, "We, the people." I was watching a video, maybe most of you have seen it. There's an elderly veteran from World War II, and he's on this video, and he's weeping because all he sees now in his isolated condition is what comes through the television. And he's weeping because he remembers his brothers laying down their lives. Today is D-Day. In a country that seems to have forgotten the great cost of freedom, our most valued treasure. And that's why it's important every year for us to take the time to restore Memorial Day to its intended purpose, to send a message to remind ourselves and each other, our entire community, of what this is that you and I have and what it costs. I want to send a message to men like that. There were World War II veterans who actually came, believe it or not, some who are still alive and came to this. You should have heard the roar of applause in that room when those men got up out of their seats and approached the front to be recognized. I want to send a message to people like that, that here in Yuba City are Americans who still understand and appreciate the value of the liberty that we enjoy. That's what I'd like to say. Dad?
Our guest speaker on Sunday encapsulated everything that we do with one word: remember. Remember. In the hustle and bustle of life, it's very easy to forget what price has been paid to keep us free. We must never forget. We must always remember and always treasure the gift that's been handed to us. Some of you have family, some of us have family and friends who laid down their lives or sacrificed on D-Day 79 years ago today. And they kept the world a safe place and protected America from tyranny. And may God help us to never forget that, always remember that, and do whatever is necessary to make sure we keep our freedom intact. Right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I'd like to invite Officer Mike Stout to come forward, please. Man. I hope everybody rolled up their windows. Whew. So this is a joyous event, but it's kind of a sad event. You know, we were fortunate to have the law enforcement family that we have in this community, and many of them are here tonight. And thank you for being here tonight. But I'm pretty convinced you were probably comfortable with retiring. You're ready to do something else for a while. You're ready to go. Okay. All right. Well, just one of five. Thank you for all those many years that you kept us safe and were allowed us to sleep safely in our beds at night. So thank you for that, sir. Mike Stout, police officer from 1994 to 2023. In recognition of your retirement, whereas Mike Stout was hired as a police officer by the city of Marysville on February 17th, 1994, and a police officer by the city of Yuba City on September 15th, 2007. Thank you for, by the way, doing that. And he has been recognized with numerous awards and commendations for his exemplary professional performance, such as Chief's Unit of the Year Award, Police Unit Commendation Ribbon, Police Fitness Ribbon, Police Achievement Award, and received the Purple Heart Award for sustaining a gunshot wound in the line of duty. Officer Stout kept the faith with the public he so honorably served for more than 29 years. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that I, Wade Kirshner, Mayor of the City of Yuba City, and on behalf of the entire City Council and citizens we serve, do hereby congratulate Mike Stout on this occasion of his honorable retirement, May 31st, 2023. We wish Mike Stout the very best in his future. Let's give him a hand. Do you have anything you'd like to say?
Like you said, you know, this is something that you look forward to, and then it's something that you're shocked when it happens. So I'm happy about it, but I'm sad at the same time. I'm leaving a great department, just awesome coworkers, friends, people that I'm gonna miss greatly. And it's just been an honor, and thank you guys very much, and an honor for working for the city, so thank you for that.
And I think Chief has a presentation for you as well, sir.
So Mike is a real big fan of getting up in public like this, so this is the only way we could corner him to do this. Mike, on behalf of the department, we'd like to present you with a certificate of honorable retirement for your dedication to the members of our community, the community of Marysville, and just overall being a great cop for almost 30 years. So thank you. Awesome.
Mike? Did you want to take a picture with your family up here, the police family up here? Okay. So can I have the PD?
Wait. Okay, you ready, Tony? Yes. Okay, I got lots.
And it just keeps coming. Okay, Keith, it's your turn. Come on down. So, for those of you who don't know, this is Keith Martin. And I've had the privilege of knowing Keith Martin for a couple of years, but his career started about 44 years ago, and you've been with Transit for 36 for Yuba City Transit, and that's simply amazing. This guy's retirement is so big that they had to hire 2 people to replace him. That's no joke. That's no joke. You know, those of us that are on those committees know what Keith's retirement means, but thank you for everything that you've done for our extended community. This is the shortened version. Because if we read the longer one, we'd be here all night, okay? But Keith Martin, Yuba Center Transit Authority, 1987 to 2023. Whereas Keith Martin was appointed as Yuba Center Transit Manager effective October 1st, 1987, and in March 1988, as also Administrator of the Regional Waste Management Authority. Under Keith's leadership, the Yuba Center Transit operation grew over time, and some of his key accomplishments, just to name a few, are the dial-a-ride system, the Sacramento commuter service, the purchase and development of the facility, and the 2011 remodel and expansion, the purchase of the property in Linda for a new zero-emission transit facility, and the securement of over $40 million in regional, state, and federal funds. Adoption of the next-gen transit plan. After more than 36 years of service to the Yuba Center community, Keith retired from Yuba Center Transit effective April 30th, 2023. He continues to serve in an interim capacity to assist in the transition to the new leadership. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Wade Kirshner, Mayor of the City of Yuba City, do hereby commend the Keith Martin of this commitment and outstanding performance as the Executive Director for the Yuba Center Transit Authority. I hereby urge all residents to join us in recognizing Keith for his countless contributions to our community and wish him all the best in the future. Let's give him a hand. Now, I know you have a few words.
All of you served on my board to thank at one point or other, so yeah, sometimes I talk too much. But it is my pleasure and certainly an honor to have served the Yuba Center area for these 36 years. This community has given me a lot back in return, and I've raised 5 children here. My wife of 43 years is here with me today. She has gone along on this ride with me all that time too. And of course, my mom, who's known me for 65 years, is here as well, along with a couple of my 6 grandkids who happen to be in town this week. So thankful for the opportunity to serve this community, and I'm not going anywhere. We're still here, and we'll still find places to plug in, I'm sure, from time to time. So I want to thank this council and all of my member jurisdictions for the privilege of having served this community for these years. Thank you very much. Thank you. I don't have a crew like the last person. Thank you.
Okay, don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. We got some more stuff to attend to here. I'd like to invite David Morgan from Congressman Lamoffa's office to come up, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Pleasure to be here today to present the special congressional certificate to you, Keith Martin, as Executive Director of the Yuba Center Transit Authority, recognizing your 36 years of service to the Yuba Center community and your 44 years of transit operations and regional planning experience. We wish you the best in retirement, and we know you've been very successful in our region, and we greatly appreciate it. So thank you.
Okay, don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. Okay. At this time, I would like to invite Laura Nichols from Senator Nilo and Assemblyman Gallagher's office to come forward, please.
Good evening. On behalf of Senator Nilo and Assemblyman Gallagher, it is an honor and a privilege to congratulate you on your retirement and to present you with this joint resolution commending you, recognizing you, encapsulating all that you have done for the community. And so we thank you. Congratulations.
I think we're good.
Yeah, you did.
Okay, so at this point, I'd like to invite Scott Scholz, the new Executive Director of Regional Waste Management Authority, to come forward.
Thank you, thank you. Well, first of all, following all that is amazing, and I'll just state I haven't done anything yet, but I'm here to be in that position hopefully at some point. That's what I'm striving for. I want to thank you all for inviting me to introduce myself to the council and to the public this evening. My name is Scott Scholz. I've recently been hired as the first ever executive director for the RWMA, the Regional Waste Management Authority, to take over for the work of Mr. Keith Martin here. As you can imagine, it's not easy to follow in his footsteps based on everything we've heard. We are similar in size, but that's a different thing. So I'm absolutely going to do my best, and I've been blessed to have the opportunity to learn from him for the past roughly 6 months. What Keith has been able to do for the RWMA has truly been amazing. It's you know, the statement was made that 2 people to fill his role by the mayor. It's true. This was his side job, and the solid waste industry is a big job. It's a daunting task, and he's done that very well with the support of his staff and other people, of course. He's kept ahead of the state regulatory requirements, which are ever-changing and extremely burdensome, as I think we all know. So a little bit about myself. I have 15 years in the solid waste industry, about 15 years on the tech world before that. But I come mostly on the private side sector as general manager for Green Waste of Palo Alto, where we did put in all the SB 1383, which I'll talk a little bit about, requirements, and did achieve full compliancy for Palo Alto. Then I did a brief stint as the recycling and solid waste manager for the city of Elk Grove. When I met Keith and learned about the opportunity here, it was a no-brainer for me. It just seemed like a lot of work has been done, and this was actually going to create a new self-sufficient organization, and in this area was amazing, and I think there's a lot of good work to be done here and a lot of great people. So I was eagerly came on board. As I mentioned, this industry is complex. You don't really think of garbage, as complex, but over the last 10 years, it's just become increasingly more complex, and it's not going to stop. The state's environmental initiatives, the evolution of waste to energy facilities and needs, electrification, you could kind of go on and on. we're dealing with the introduction of 3 bills over the last 10 years that do AB 341, 1826, and SB 1383, which impose a lot of requirements on residents, commercial establishments, as well as cities to meet these regulations or potentially face fines, which are quite significant. So when I came into the role, the clock was ticking. Keith was leaving as quickly as he could, is making sure that the transit and regional waste were in good hands, hopefully. And so I was lucky to spend the time with him and his staff, which had been just instrumental in keeping this thing going, as well as one consultant that had been working with the group for 30 years. So we were really trying to, and all that was coming to an end on July 1st. So really had to get the organization together to learn about the area, to learn about what they had done, what we needed to do in the future, and how to sort of walk and then take bigger steps for the area, which has been tough. So some of the short-term priorities were establishing a relationship with the hauler. I come from the hauling world, so I have been lucky enough to build up a good relationship with our hauler, and I think there's a lot of potential for improvements on our end, on their end, to bring better service to everybody in the area, to really sharpen what we need. So I'm looking forward to that as we continue down that path. There's been a lot of successes and some challenges. Challenge with our diversion rate, with our compliance on mandatory recycling and composting. But successes where the program where residential organics was already established, and a lot of areas in the state that still doesn't exist. The contracts were in good order. Our processing facilities. I mean, these are things that a lot of large areas are really struggling with, and I think that Keith's work and his team put us in a really good position to do this. A lot of grants that come with this, which are helpful and we need, but they take time to administer and to apply for. So, making sure we're not missing out on these grants, and we're taking advantage of everything that's potentially coming down the line. So we needed to be self-sufficient July 1st. We're on that path. We're ready to go. It's not going to be easy. It hasn't been easy. Currently have myself and one management analyst. And I really needed to know what the organization needed to look like for now and also going forward. So we're hoping to hire one more management analyst in the short term to really get ahead and really become compliant with 1383, because in January 2024 is when the state can levy fines potentially, or at least put us on the track to prove that we're moving forward. And we're going to need the resources to do that. We're also going to need the resources of all the jurisdictions we serve to help with that, so we can kind of share that burden and not create a large organization just to handle these administrative tasks. We want to be lean and efficient, but there are quite extensive tasks that are coming at us. So basically, with the support of Keith's team, my technical advisory committee, which Diane is a part of, as well as other administrators, and my board, which a couple members are in the room, I think it's really been helpful for me to understand what needs to be done, understand how to do it, and to make those steps forward in the right direction. I'm always going to make mistakes and need advice and need direction, which I'm more than happy to take from anybody, citizens. I like to listen to anybody that has thoughts on the matter and develop the best course of action from there. So just to close it out, I'm extremely excited. There's a lot of work, a lot of training of my staff in certain areas. Hopefully bringing on someone that has some experience in the industry, and then really just sort of making sure we get ahead and stay ahead of the state CalR cycle. We currently are going through a compliance review, and that's going to be a long process. But once we get through it, which could be a year, could be 2 years, we should essentially be clear for at least the next 5 years, so then we can really start to look at what this community needs and put and provide that. So thanks again. I'm extremely excited to be a part of this area, and I appreciate you having me here. And that's it, unless you guys have any questions for me.
Thank you, Director.
Through the mayor. Scott, behalf of the city, thank you for coming on as executive director. I've already had the privilege of working with you as well as Supervisor Baines. You mentioned you got your chair and vice chair of RWMA here tonight. The one thing I will say coming to our council is, you bring some knowledge to this that we don't possess, and especially you see the blind spots. We have a 1383, and I know we've got some things coming before us. Because you're not just looking at the immediate. You and I have had conversations for what we need 3 years, 5 years down the road. So thank you for your forward thinking, and to the council, you're going to see more stuff coming out of RWMA because we need all the jurisdictions to make it work. And I think we're on a good track. So, and Keith, thank you for everything you did before. So,
thank you. Thank you
very much, Director. Okay. Thanks again, Keith. Thank you. Okay, moving along. Public communication. Number 5, appearance of interested citizens. You are welcome and encouraged to participate in this meeting. Public comment is taken on action items appearing on the consent calendar or business items on the agenda when they are called. Public comment on any other item within the scope of the city's jurisdiction, including items not listed on the agenda, will be considered at this time. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Members of the public submitting written requests at least 24 hours prior to the meeting will be allotted 5 minutes to comment per speaker. Repetitive comments may be limited, and large groups are encouraged to select representatives to express the opinions of their group. We have a written request by Mr. Satnam Singh. Sir, you have the podium.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Mm-hmm. Okay. Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, and audience. My name is Satnam Singh, and I'm here on the behalf of my Indian community to talk to you about bills you may not be aware of. Right now in our state assembly, the bill SB 403 is making its way. This bill is to add caste as a protected class with race, gender, sex, religion, etc. To give you some background, caste is a system of operation in India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. It is a way for those of higher caste to keep those of lower caste out of the workforce and on the outskirts of society. It is backward and poisonous system that we left in India. Many of us left India and this system behind to come to America, where we could be recognized for our action and merit and not our caste. SB 403 is bringing that system into US. The bill is being brought forward in good faith, and in theory, it works. But in practice, it has implications that we cannot even begin to understand. We are trying to look at the effect of this bill 5 to 10 years down the line. It is going to divide the community, and it will leave us to be profiled in school and work. The bill is being supported by Equity Labs, and they have falsified data. They have been getting support from outside of the country. Another issue with this bill is that if someone does face caste-based discrimination, they will have to prove what their caste is, and that their employer knew about their caste. How is the younger generation supposed to be proved their caste? when they do not know about the system and want nothing to do with it. The community in Yuba City opposed this bill, and Sikh Temple, Yuba City and surrounding area have also written letter of opposition. The sporting side even wrote fraudulent letter from our temple to fake support for the bill. The evidence and data supporting the bill has been falsified, and they have not shown the data. They have stated that 67% of South Asian face caste-based discrimination, yet there are never any report of it. They also say 1/4 South Asian student in higher education face caste discrimination. Yet many of our kids are in higher education, and we have never heard a single complaint. We thank Center behalf that bringing this bill forward. However, it does not help in practice. It only works in theory. America is a beautiful country, and we are enjoying our fundamental rights. And we live happily together. Our community is happy, and we are doing things together. If someone such as caste does not even exist here, why are we bringing it here to create problem? Having the bill will have implication that we cannot even imagine. We urge you to look at opposing and affect that this bill will have year from now. We hope to have your support in opposing this bill. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. I have a second written request by Pawinder Mahi. The podium is yours, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, Wade, and all the other city council members to give us the opportunity to get consideration of this bill, SB 403. Mr. Satnam Singh, he already told you a lot about it. He explained everything almost. So whatever should be the consequences and what should be the impact on the future society. So this bill is only targeting the South Asian community, including Indian population, Pakistan, Bangladesh, like that. So only the caste system, because we don't want to import any bad things like the caste system from other countries while we're enjoying everything here, all the fundamental rights, all the civil rights. Nobody asking anybody their caste, nobody not even deny from anything, from the job, from buying the property, buying the houses, everything. Nobody is denying because of his or her caste. So the main reason is we don't want that, because today it just looks like the simple word is caste, but in the future there should be some amendments that it is the low caste, this is the high caste. Because the people saying nobody asks you your caste. So we have a question, a lot of guys, that why, if nobody asks you your caste, why you want to bring that caste word here? You have to prove that which caste you belong. That should be hard for everybody. Otherwise, we need to give the affidavit or blah, blah like that. This is my caste, this is the low caste, this is the high caste, which does not exist here. So that's why we are strongly opposing this bill. Like our whole community, like surrounding all the Bay Area and LA area and Sacramento area and here, all the temples are with us. They're opposing already for this bill. And thank you very much for the Yuba City Council. We just want to bring in your consideration that just look at this bill and see the consequences of this bill and see the impact of this bill, what should be the coming society should be. So we are very thankful to you to give us the chance to put this in your consideration. And we look forward that you can oppose this bill very strongly as we're doing. Thank you very much, Mr. Wade, and all the city council member and all the audience here. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any additional comments from the public? Public comment, you have 3 minutes to speak. Any additional public comment? Any additional public comment? Would you like to step up to, please?
Good evening. My name is Sharon Foote. I live at 1461 Thomas Drive in Yuba City. I just have a couple of questions. It's not pro or con, but it's a consent item, and I don't know how you deal with that.
Through the mayor, if I may.
Yeah.
We're not to the consent items yet. So after this portion is done, they'll call the consent items, and for all the consent items, except for items number 11 or 12, you'll have another opportunity to come up and talk to them. If you're talking about item 11 or 12, they're going to individually hold items 11 and 12. So you will have a separate opportunity to speak on the consent calendar items. It's going to be just in a minute.
Will you let me know when?
Yes, we will. Thank you.
Okay.
Just stay right there, Sharon. Just stay right there.
Just stay right there. When we get to the agenda, when they open it up again, it'll be the next one on the agenda, most likely.
Thank you. Do we have any further public comments? Any further public comments?
No, you're a photographer.
Okay. All right. Okay. This is too good. All right. Seeing none, we're gonna move right along to consent calendar. All matters listed in the consent calendar are considered to be routine and can be enacted in one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items prior to the time that council votes on the motion unless members of the city council request specific items to be discussed or removed from the consent calendar for individual action. Items 11 and 12 will be pulled from the consent calendar and voted on separately. Do we have any comments from the public on consent calendar items 6 through 10 and 13 through 16?
Okay. Item 14, can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I was just curious for my own information as to what kind of military equipment we are talking about that is part of Yuba City Police Department. And where do we get this military equipment? Do we buy it from the federal government? I have 2 questions.
Okay. Chief, would you like to address those?
Yeah, I can either address it to the group or we can have a discussion outside. It's whatever you prefer, ma'am.
Huh?
Give it to the whole group. Yeah. So if I understand right, ma'am, you had a question about what's classified as military equipment?
That you use in the department, yes.
So a couple years ago, the legislature passed a law that says that if, and they deem certain things, and it gets down even into the weeds as far as like ammunition, ballistic helmets, anything that could be used and like the military could use that's used by civilian police departments. We have to write a report to the council and to the public every year identifying what those things are. And so we do have a couple pieces of armored vehicles that we utilize for our regional SWAT team, and those do come from the federal government. But it talks about like our patrol rifles that we issue to our patrol officers. Those are all classified technically as, quote, military equipment. So it's a wide variety of things. So we're not bringing in, we're not going to see a Sherman tank going down Plymouth Street. But yeah,
Humvees?
we do not have any Humvees. We have one, what they call an MRAP, that is still in our fleet and will be till probably the end of the year until we have another piece of armored equipment that we purchased, but it has about a 12-month lead time. That answer it?
Yes, I think so. Do you have rifles, military rifles and things that you purchased from the government?
We do not purchase things from the government. We
They
have.
They give them to you?
No, we do not. All of our rifles are civilian model, like AR-15 type tactical rifles that we utilize for different deployment methods.
Great, thank you. Thank you for your time.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Do we have any further comments from the public on consent calendar items 6 through 10 and 13 through 16? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring those items back to council for action.
Through the mayor.
Yes.
Move to approve consent calendar items 6 through 10 and 13 through 16.
I've got a motion from Councilmember Shaw.
Second.
And a second from Councilmember Pasquale. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Okay. Now we're going to move along to here we go. Consent calendar item 11. At this point, we have two recusals, Councilmember Boomgarden and Councilmember Pasquale.
Through the mayor, I live in this area, so I must recuse myself.
Okay.
I as well.
Okay. And the presentation is by Josh Wolf or Ben Moody.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if we were going to do a presentation. Really, this is just an initiation action to kick off the annual review of the city's light and landscape maintenance districts. And so this is a procedural step to order the engineer to look into the engineer's report for those districts to evaluate funding need.
Okay.
And start the process for a potential assessment review.
Do we have any questions from the, do we have any comments from the public on consent calendar item number 11? Any questions from the public on consent calendar item number 11? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to council.
Through the mayor.
Yes.
I move to adopt a resolution describing improvements and ordering the engineer of work to file a report with regard to Yuba City Landscape Maintenance District Number 1 to continue the maintenance district pursuant to Landscaping and Lighting Act of 1972.
I've got a motion from Councilmember Shaw and a second from the Vice Mayor Harris. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries. At this point, Mark comes back, I believe, right? Okay. Somebody want to get him? Okay. Okay. Okay, consent calendar item number 12, Yuba City Lighting Landscaping Districts 2, 3, 4, 5, Town Center and various subdivisions through the Yuba City, and Yuba City Lighting and Landscaping Maintenance Districts number 6, Commercial District Initiation. I understand that we have additional recusals on item 12. City Attorney, please City Attorney, please advise on voting procedures without a quorum.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Could I have all council members who are going to be recusing themselves because they live in the district raise their hand on this one? So we have 3 council members that have to recuse themselves, which means we only have 2 council members left. But in order to do city business, you need a total of 3. So normally the 3 would recuse themselves, but there's an exception for what's called the public interest or public business, because you can't get anything done with all 3 leave. The way that's selected is you pick a random way, like flipping a coin for the items, and then you get just enough council members so that you have 3, and then the other 2 will end up leaving the room. However, this particular type of business item is a little bit different, or I should say consent item, and the reason is it's not just this meeting that the person, the extra council member, will need to stay. it'll be for at least 2 other meetings in the future. So my question to the council members who would need to recuse themselves, is there any council member who knows that they are not going to be present at least for the next 2 or 3 meetings, one of the next 2 or 3 meetings?
Through the mayor.
Yep.
Mr. Chaffin, I will not be here at the next council meeting as I will be at a continuing education conference.
Alrighty, thank you very much. If that's the case, my suggestion is we flip a coin between, is it the mayor and Councilmember Pasquale, or Mayor and Councilmember Harris? Oh, Council.
I don't have a
Baumgarten
coin.
and Pasquale that are left on this one? Okay. Okay. Sorry, thank you. Thank you for keeping it simple for me. It's been one of those nights already. So if you don't mind, Councilmember Harris, we usually go for the newest council member to call heads or tails. Councilmember Pasquale, can you pick heads or tails? Heads. Okay, so if it lands heads when the city clerk flips it, you'll stay. If it lands tails, Councilmember Harris, or Vice Mayor Harris will stay.
Okay, we're going to be dramatic.
Okay, as it lands.
It is tails.
It is tails. Thank you very much. In which case, Councilmember Pasquale and Councilmember Shaw will recuse themselves. Councilmember Harris will stay, notwithstanding the recusal.
Great.
Thank you so much. If anybody wants to take a look at the coin, they're more than happy to do so. Here's your opportunity. Spencer will do it. All righty.
We need a finance guy.
It's tails.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Do we need a presentation on this as well? No, we don't. Okay, so I'll bring it back to consent calendar item number 12, back to council.
You do need public comment on this one,
Oh,
though.
excuse me. Do we have any public comment on consent calendar item number 12? Any public comment? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to council for questions or actions.
Go ahead.
All right, we have to read the whole thing on this one, correct?
No, just adopt a resolution is fine.
All right, through the mayor, I recommend that we adopt a resolution as recommended in the agenda.
I've got a motion from the vice mayor.
Second.
I've got a second from Councilmember Baumgarten. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, City Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Moving along to business items, number 17, fiscal year 2023-2024 chemical bid award and sole source agreement presented by Spencer Morrison, our finance director.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. This is the annual the annual chemical bid award that we bring you every year, and it's going to be very similar to years past. This will be impacting the general fund, the water fund, and the wastewater fund. There are 2 methods for obtaining essential bulk chemicals for each fiscal year. We belong to a consortium called the Bay Area Chemical Consortium. And then for the chemicals that we are not able to get through the consortium, they simply don't bid the certain chemicals. We hold a city-held formal bid for those chemicals. Formal bid 2302 was issued to procure 3 chemicals not provided by the BACC: calcium hydroxide, liquid oxygen, and powdered activated carbon. Came out bigger than I thought, so that's good. So these are the recommended chemicals that were part of the BACC bid: aluminum sulfate, sodium bisulfite, citric acid, sodium hydroxide, liquid chlorine, sodium hyperchlorite, and fluoride. And so you can see the amounts that were part of the RFP that will be awarded. This is the results of the formal bid 2302 for powdered activated carbon. Atlas Carbon LLC from New Orleans, Louisiana, bid at $1.12 a pound plus tax. Liquid oxygen through Matheson Trigas of Irving, Texas, which is our current provider, 99.63 dollars per gallon. And calcium hydroxide, we did not receive any bids at the bid deadline. So we are proposing, staff is proposing a calcium hydroxide sole source agreement because we did receive a bid. It came in after the deadline due to a mail delay. And that bid was from La Hoist, North America of Arizona. Staff researched and found that the price was competitive. And staff does recommend awarding a sole source agreement to La Hoist, North America of Arizona, Inc., in the not-to-exceed amount of $250,000 for 1 year. And the agreement will allow the city manager to extend the contract for up to 3 one-year extensions. The total impact of all chemicals, should we use every single chemical, be about $2 million, and that is already budgeted. Well, it's mostly already budgeted. This is a cost increase for water and wastewater, and you might see in the near future a request to make a supplemental appropriation for the difference. The allocation is as shown: water treatment plant, wastewater treatment facility, and Gaucher. I think I have. So the recommendation is to award bulk chemical contracts to the Bay Area Chemical Consortium, BACC, to the recommended awardees, and award formal bid 2302 to Atlas Carbon LLC and Matheson Trigas Inc., and then to authorize a sole source agreement with La Hoist, North America of Arizona Inc., and authorize the city manager to amend any current agreements with the awardees to adjust unit prices or terms as approved if it is in the best interest of the city to do so. Do you have any questions for me?
Okay. Do we have any comments from the public on this item? Any comments from the public on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to council.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Spencer, when you say that it was competitive, it was at the high end or the low end, or was it somewhere in the middle when you said competitive price?
So there aren't a lot of distribute, things that we can, other suppliers. So I don't know the margin, but it was close. It was as close as we would expect.
Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, sir. Any further? Okay. Bring it back to council for action then.
Well, through the mayor.
Yes.
I'd like to adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of Yuba City, move to adopt a resolution awarding for items A, B, C, D, as listed in the staff report.
Got a motion from Councilmember Boomgarden.
Second.
Got a second from Councilmember Pasquale. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Morrison. Moving along to business item 18, SB1, Road Maintenance and Rehabilitation Account, Project List 2023 and 2024, presented by Mr. Ben Moody.
Okay, so what you have before you is in regards to SB1, Maintenance and Rehabilitation Account. So this came into play in 2017, 2018 regarding our gas tax. And so there was a measure in California where there was a COLA that was an inflator that was put on the gas tax, and then also registration increased. And so this is where the funding comes back to the city. We'd always like it to be more. And so this is really an opportunity I just wanted to highlight because there's a little bit, there's a difference from what I presented at the budget study session last meeting. So I just wanted to highlight it and then also highlight the roads that we're calling out. So quick timeline is the Road Repair Accountability Act came into play. State controller deposits the funds. Eligible cities and counties get an apportionment based on a formula. And then jurisdictions, and so this is where it comes in, is typically it's consent, is that annually jurisdictions are required to submit a project list annually to the CTC to basically designate where we plan to use those funds, and then what we've spent. And so how we handle this is that we make a separate CIP account, and then we put this money into it. Currently, there's two main there's two main existing projects that are encompassing the existing funds, Bridge Street and Walton. And I've talked about, it's kind of a piggy bank we're putting in there for Walton as this money comes through. And so when I showed the typical funding, we called out about $1.5 million. And so this year, the projections are up a little bit. And so what we've received is that, well, before I go into the money, I'll just highlight the list. And so some of these new items that I've called out for, there's not a guarantee that we're going to do these, but these are what staff's angling for maintenance needs for this coming year that we're going to try to hit, where Butte House Road from Tharp to Gray is in bad shape. Stabler Lane up around the roundabout and that island are really falling apart. And then what Lincoln and Bogue, really there's just a portion of these roads. The county's approached us because they're planning on doing road projects in these areas. And we want to potentially partner. We've had some success partnering with them where if they have a project they're running, we pay the quantity price to do our half of the road. And politically, a lot of times it looks bad if they do half of the road and we don't do our half. And so we'll work with them to make sure it's priority streets for us and rehab methods that are what we want. And so staff will work with each other in order to make sure we get a product we want. But this is really to set us up should we decide to go down this path for it. And there'll be council actions. In the past, we've done some similar projects on Sanborn Road, Franklin Road in the past. Here's just an exhibit to kind of show those project locations that were just on the list. Here's a quick, visual just to show some of the conditions of the road. These are hot spots. The entire segments don't look like this, but there's definitely a sense of Stabler Lane. It's alligator. It's into that failed state pretty much. Butte House Road. Everybody travels these. These are pretty much arterials, main collectors in the for our areas. So. With this, I wanted to highlight because I just came off a meeting where I was telling you the regular amount is about 1.5. And so this year we're saying they're projecting to us that's about 1.7. And so in our budget estimates, we put in 1.5 based on the budget timing for this coming year. We haven't fully received it. You always receive the money in the rears is how it comes through. And so I just wanted to call that out to make sure the highlighted difference. But it is up a little bit, which is a good thing. But $200,000 in the scheme of $11.5 million, $20 million shortfall, it doesn't go a long ways, but we'll take what we can. And so with that, staff is recommending you consider and adopt a resolution adopting a list of projects for fiscal year 23-24 to be funded by Senate Bill SB1, Road Repair and Accountability Act, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you, Mr. Moody. Do we have any comments from the public on this item?
Our community, I'm Sharon Foote. Our community certainly would be very supportive of road maintenance, and we all know how well our roads are doing. Not well. Anyway, I have a question. You listed 5 different areas. I presume we're not getting all those 5 areas done in 1 year. Am I correct?
That's a good assumption.
Do you have a priority list?
Currently, the priority is finishing Bridge Street and then Walton funding. And then, but with that, we hope to put out a maintenance project that it won't be a full reconstruction, but there will be some maintenance for Butte House, for Stabler, and with the partnership with the county. I don't have their exact timeline if they're going to be able to deliver it this summer, but it might be a next summer project. But it puts that funding in place and helps us strategically start to plan for what we have.
Now, in that list there, you had also, is it Bridge Street, and is that part of the widening process that's already taking place?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments from the public on this item? Any further public comments? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to council.
Through the mayor?
Yes.
Recommend adopt a resolution adopting a list of projects for fiscal year 2024 to the funded by Senate Bill 1, Road Repair and Accountability Act of 2017.
I've got a motion by Councilmember Pasquale.
Second.
And a second from Councilmember Shaw. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Moody. Roads are definitely on our mind. Thank you for that. Moving to business item number 19, adoption of the City of Yuba City's fiscal year 2023-2024 operating and capital budgets and fiscal year 2023-2024 appropriations limit, presented by Mr. Spencer Morrison.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. I am presenting you with a review of the 23-24 operating budget for the general fund and a summary of the enterprise funds. I do want to recognize my team, Deanna Pope, Accounting Manager, Amarjeet Kaur, Analyst 2, as both are responsible for coordinating, stewarding, and building this budget. I also want to recognize department heads for putting forth a lot of thought and planning and good recommendations in their budget submissions. At the end of the general fund section, I will outline some actions that came from the budget study session and take your questions about the fund. And then after the presentation, I will turn the mic over to Ben Moody to do a brief review of CIP. So again, this will be a lot of the same material covered in the budget study session, so I plan to go through it quite a bit more quickly with slightly, just some fewer slides, but please do stop me as you have questions or comments to interject.
Excuse me, through the mayor. Spencer, could we allow the budget ad hoc to, the council budget ad hoc to do a couple of introductory statements? Because this year was so different of how we addressed the budget than we've done in previous years. And so I'd like to give the opportunity for the budget ad hoc to be able to discuss, the process and difficult decisions that had to be made in regard to the recommendations.
Thank you for that, City Manager. So this year was very unique in that we will be making some very difficult decisions. The ad hoc budget committee was created 4 years ago for the express purpose of just getting another set of eyes on the budget and literally going item by item and differentiating between the wants and the needs. And this year, we're going to be focused on the needs. What's going to come out of this budget, some of these items are not going to be a no. They're going to be a no for now. I think that'd be an accurate way to describe it. But this budget, if this council decides to approve it this evening, is going to be lean and mean. And I think that's our obligation as elected officials and real responsibility to the people who put us here. And do you have anything to add to that, Councilman?
Sure do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mm-hmm. As a person who has served on the Budget Ad Hoc Committee now for, I believe, 3 of the last 4 years, as the mayor mentioned, this is definitely a different cycle, a different budget cycle for us. Continuing with the theme of being fiscally responsible and as well as fiscally conservative. I think we, in concert with our staff, and I too would like to acknowledge staff's hand in hand working with us, especially this year, as we really took a deep dive into what were our revenues not only now, but what we projected those to be in several of the years coming up. And then we also tasked the staff to take a look at those things that we know are going to be needed now, but also quantify and provide costing for those things that are going to be needed in the future. The reason for this is we're looking at this year, the mayor and I, along with staff, we're looking at this budget plus several years out ahead, which I do believe is the way to look at budgets if you're in a municipality such as Yuba City, and you are not necessarily in control of all the things that we have to expend. And I would specifically point out things like fuel costs, chemical costs, which we just saw, and state mandates. As much as we like to have local control, sometimes that doesn't happen. And then there are requirements that are imposed upon the cities that we must meet, and usually that has a cost associated with it. So as Mr. Morrison begins to present to this budget, there will be some information that will be forthcoming during the presentation that speaks specifically to some key areas of which we feel are the essential services. That's the public safety, roads, and also several other items in here. So we'll be talking about those needs, and homeless. Okay, homeless, if you're in our community, you know that one of the key things besides the roads and besides making sure that our police force is adequately staffed and able to respond, our fire department's adequately staffed and able to respond, is dealing with a homelessness problem and affordable housing. So we have some information forthcoming on that. I think that I would like to also signal that what we're putting forth are what we know today to be the true and valid costs of things that we know that we need to do today to begin to resolve these problems. But we also, again, mentioned that we wanted to forecast some things that definitely we need to do. But as the mayor just mentioned, maybe we do not have the funds available to tackle those right away. But we certainly want to know what those costs are going to be so that we can prepare to address those for the future. So as we go through the process here, I'm sure the mayor or I might jump in and add a little to Mr. Morrison's presentation. There's also our fire chief, our police chief, and our public works person here too. So as we go through this, we'll have an opportunity to dive in, as Mr. Morrison said, a little deeper if we need to. But I'd turn it back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Mr. Morris?
Thank you. This slide just points out much of what the mayor and Councilmember Boomgarden mentioned, that these are the priorities for council. You can see quality of life is paramount, and then quality of life is supported by public safety, being business friendly, good quality infrastructure, and of course fiscal responsibility. This is a snapshot of the general fund budget. You can see the blue and the red sections are police and fire, make up about 63% of your general fund budget. So that's key to remember. Big part of our budgeting story has to do with deficits and surpluses. The surpluses are reducing. There was a time especially during the pandemic, that we were not able to buy things that we even had money for because they just weren't available. And I think many of you experienced this. And even to this day, it starts to linger, but we are able to make purchases, so we're not going to be showing as big of a surplus in the current fiscal year as we might be expecting. And that surplus turns to deficit very quickly. In fact, the surplus that I'm going to talk about in a moment is really not so much a surplus as that we didn't use as many reserves as we anticipated. So I'll point that out again as we continue. We have had salary adjustments. All the COVID money, the stimulus money that hit every household in the nation has dried up. I believe that's all been spent and is in the pockets they're going to remain in. So we're not seeing as many purchases in town. So sales tax is continuing to flatten, if not turn a little negative year over year. So we're not seeing as much sales tax come in. And we're not seeing as many vacancies in staff or have been able to fill vacant positions, so we're not seeing as much savings there as well, and just overall cash on hand is expected to shrink.
Through the mayor. Yeah. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I promise I'm not going to interrupt this often, but I did fail to mention one thing that I think this is important, and it goes along with that previous slide, if you could go back to it, is this ad hoc committee that this year, along with staff, was dealing with the emergence of the city of Yuba City out of a COVID situation where we were extremely fiscally conservative in anticipation or not knowing exactly what was going to happen. And so as we norm ourselves out of that, the expenditures are reflected up here when we start talking about some of the things that were needed to do. Cash on hand is expected to shrink because we were able to do things that we were unable to do or unable to buy during the COVID. Sales tax flattening, the people weren't as home as much now, so they're not buying some of the things or doing the home improvement stuff that was going on. Vacancies lessening because we aggressively tried to recruit and retain our employees, and that has a cost associated with it. So I just wanted to mention that some of what Mr. Morrison's going to talk, it talks about 2021 and 2022 really being those years when COVID, and rightfully so, drove this city to be very conservative with how it spent its money. As we come into the fiscal year 22-23, we were able, again, not to be foolish with our money, but we were able to do the things and buy some of the stuff that was deferred because we couldn't make those purchases or couldn't get those things during the COVID time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Baumgarten. This slide really just came out of a conversation with the Budget Ad Hoc Committee asking, what are our costs today versus 10 years ago for some simple items? And so we picked 4 items, and 3 of them are on this slide. 3/4 ton pickup, very difficult to get today for us. It had about a 55% increase. Gas and electric is really close to being there, a little more than 55%. And labor over time has increased. So just like all the households, the city is experiencing rising costs. The really, really big one that we picked that's not on this slide was cost of insurance. So the city, we don't really call it insurance. We call it coverage for liability and coverage for property. It was about a 400% increase, and it made all these other lines look absolutely flat. And so removed it from the slide just because it's so out of control right now in the insurance industry, as you all know. And so we have that going on there. The budget process goes from departments to finance through the ad hoc committee, which you had a good explanation of that process. City manager recommendations takes it to a budget study session, which happened last week, and then budget adoption tonight. Ad hoc had lots of recommendations, and they had some deferrals, as the mayor and councilmember Baumgarten mentioned. So what we're seeing here is the recommendations, and this slide includes a capital improvement project over on the far right. But in the general fund, the ad hoc recommended a little over $400,000 in materials, supplies, and services, and about $113,000 in new personnel costs. And for water, which is in blue here, has about $984,000 in material, supplies, and services, and most of that is made up of power and gas costs, electricity and gas. And then wastewater, $254,000 in material, supplies, and services, which is marked in the, which is part of the blue as well. And then technology, about $120,000 material, supplies, and services. And then the vehicle replacement plan, which is separate from the general fund, is already funded about $1.7 million in replacement vehicles as they come available. I wanted to see the slide, the bar graph without capital improvement programs squishing down all the bars. And so same numbers, just see a little bit easier which each bar is made up, how each bar is made up. So this is the other side. These are the things that the ad hoc committee recommended to the council at the budget study session that we do not fund. And in the general fund, they said not yet on $673,000 material, supplies, and services and $4.6 million in personnel requests. And technology, to about $2 million is going to be deferred, and vehicle replacement, about $955,000 will be deferred. In addition, the ad hoc did recommend reducing City Council professional development budget by $20,000. That would be travel, training, and other professional development costs. And reducing the city manager budget to better fund the Development Services You Can program by $29,000. And then reducing existing general fund CIP, capital improvement project balances to help fund other projects by $590,000. And again, the same slide, I took the capital improvement project out just so you have a better idea of how the others, personnel, material supplies and services, and capital acquisition deferrals are divided. The city will be drawing on reserves again this year. Last fiscal year, we transferred $3.2 million from general fund capital improvement project to help fund additional expenditures that were brought to council after the budget was adopted. This year we're expecting to transfer $4.1 million for the operating budget for the general fund. The City Council does have reserves and discretionary funds available to them. The city reserves are set at 15% of the 23-24 general fund operating budget. So we're anticipating to have a reserve of $8.6 million. But then there are other discretionary funds that are made up of general fund monies, and once they're general fund monies, they're always general fund monies, and so City Council always has discretion over these funds. But we have already designated many of these funds for other purposes, and so while Council has discretion to use them, they may have bigger operational impacts to the city. So one of them is vehicle replacement, so we have set aside money over the years to replace city fleet vehicles. And so there's about $8.6 million in general fund money in the vehicle replacement fund that council could pull back if needed. A pension stabilization fund. This fund was established several years ago to help offset the growing unfunded actuarial liability from pensions. And so this fund has about $4.5 million in it. Development impact fee loans were loans from the general fund to a couple of impact fees that were in the red. They were upside down, and so the general fund was sending money that direction when we had surplus to help fund those development impact fee, but that money could be pulled back any time as well. And then the general fund is anticipated to have a balance in the 23-24 fiscal year of about $1.3 million. And then we have a budget stabilization reserve of about $2.5 million that I forecast that we'll be needing to look at these again in the next fiscal year. So in the general fund, just a quick look at the trend. There's 10 years of actual data, and then for revenues, you can see in the 23 and 24 years, so fiscal year 22-23, which is we're in right now, and the 23-24 year, I'm anticipating to use about that much of reserves to fund all the expenditures, and that's the 3.2 in the current fiscal year and the 4.1 in the coming fiscal year. I think I have a note on that. So of the projected revenues, about 2.9 million are public safety generated, and in 22-23 and in 23-24, about 2 million are anticipated to be public safety generated. So the largest revenue changes are sales tax and property tax. We expect sales tax to increase, if only slightly, over what was budgeted in 22-23, but so small that I'm going to call it flat. We had a discussion during the budget study session of whether or not that will happen. That it changes all the time. Right now, sales tax is trending downward, but I still would call it flat, I hope. And property tax remains strong, increasing by $270,000. And then you can see some other changes as we go down through. Of sales tax, you can see how, looking at the 4 quarters, the most recent 4 quarters, year over year, we're seeing a 4% increase in the 4th quarter of this, so that would be January, February, March. 2nd quarter would be a slight decline, and then the decline is growing as we get to December, the quarter ending in December 31st. The average decrease is about 0.28%. Expenses have also increased over time, just as we talked about before, and I added in a column that includes the 22-23 budget. We expect to come in our actual costs to be less than what we budgeted, and that is essentially using fewer reserves, as I mentioned earlier. So we'll put 2.2 million of the $3.2 million that we transferred back into unallocated, but we'll end up anticipate using it in 23-24. And then we have a $57.4 million proposed general fund expenditure budget, as you can see. The dark band is material, supplies, and services, and the light part of that bar is salaries and benefits. The largest expenditures are changes in payroll. The safety portion of those changes was $2.3 million. The non-safety portion, $1.3 million. And then that was for 22-23, the fiscal year that we're in today. Our changes in payroll over the next fiscal year are more conservative in the general fund at just over $500,000. And that would be things that are already programmed, like merit increases that are already programmed, healthcare, health benefits, and benefits increases, and so forth. Some of these things are not in the control of this council. And there are some very modest special material, supplies, and services requests. In safety, it was under $100,000, non-safety, $400,000. And then there's a debt service increase, and that's already prescribed. It's nothing that no decision that we made in this room this year. So these are debt service that we already have on the books for bonds. Continuing on, we do have a reduction in one-time material, supplies, and services. So items that were one-time requests last fiscal year are now, I'm subtracting that from the total, about $127,000. Internal service fund charges would include liability insurance and some other items where we're transferring money into the general fund or away from the general fund based on cost allocation. And then the city's portion of animal services is due to increase about $128,000 in the next fiscal year, and that's the cost of animal services is borne by Yuba City, Sutter County, and Live Oak, City of Live Oak, and it's apportioned by population. So Yuba City pays about 70% of the animal services costs. We are always expecting pension cost increases, as that's been the case for many years. However, in December of 2020, CalPERS posted a very sizable investment gain, which ends up showing that our rates are going down over time, going out through fiscal year 28-29 as they project forward. However, when we actually, so in fiscal year 2020, maybe it's fiscal year 2021, there was a significant investment savings. In fiscal year 2022, there was a significant investment loss for CalPERS pensions. And so I'm anticipating that the cost is going to go up just as I reported last year. So it's going to look more like last year. So this year's a little bit of a one-time look. The savings is going to be very short-lived, and costs are going to go up, although not as steep as they once have. The enterprise funds, water revenues, expenses, and debt coverage. We are seeing, as you can see here, total expenses increasing in the purple. Revenues are also increasing, but not keeping pace with expenditures. And so this blue line, the debt coverage ratio, is declining in water. It's sitting at about 1.47, and we must maintain 1.2 coverage. So that just means that we need to have 120 times the cash that we need to cover the debt that's already owed by the water fund. And as you can see, this slide has the capital improvement projects in purple and the net revenues in gold and cash reserves. So these lines bounce around based on projects, large capital projects. And so you can see that cash reserves were high when capital projects are low, and as capital projects increase, that cash reserve is going to decline as well. Same slides for wastewater, expenses, total revenues, and debt coverage ratio. This debt coverage ratio is closer to 2. I believe it's at 1.97, which is much farther away from 1.2 than water was. So a little bit better shape there, the wastewater fund. Wastewater is not impacted by conservation. So when we don't have enough water for everyone to water every day of the week, like this year, then we have issues with revenue, because as we ask homeowners to use less water, then that's less revenue, and so fewer capital projects can be constructed. And again, you can see a very large capital project in 1920 as we made significant updates to the wastewater plant and systems here. And then the wastewater projects have tapered off for the few years, and so cash reserves are actually in an intermediate position here. So you've seen these slides before tonight, just because they have, I wanted to bring them back just to show the blend of public safety, non-safety, public works, and utilities as far as the citywide capital acquisitions are concerned, just so you can see the mix of the recommendations here. And I have the approved capital acquisitions are total about $2 million, and public safety has about 1.3 million of those, non-safety just under 200,000, public works just under 200,000, and utilities is about 350,000. These are the deferrals. Likewise, there were many public safety personnel cost needs identified. However, given the budget situation, the recommendation was not yet to defer those. And getting back to capital acquisition, the chiefs discussed at the budget ad hoc, or the budget study session, about $3 million in public safety capital acquisitions, not approved at this time. So there are some actions in the staff report tonight, and this first one is a little more complex, but this came from a discussion during the budget study session, is that the council expressed that they would like to see in the resolution tonight an additional discretionary payment to CalPERS to help pay down that unfunded actuarial liability of $875,000. And so it'll be a combination of pension stabilization funds, which is this section 115 here. That was the shortest way I could write pension stabilization fund. Those are general fund monies. It'll come from water, wastewater, vehicle maintenance, and SASA. And then we're going to offset the burden on the funds by the prepayment savings. So each year we're faced with a choice where we have to make an annual payment against our unfunded actuarial liability, and the best bang for our buck is to pay it all up front. Make the payment in July, and it saves us about 3.4% of the cost, because otherwise we'll be charged interest on the UAL if we make 12 monthly payments. And so we'd rather not pay interest if we've got the cash. And so we will plan to make the payment and charge all the departments their share of the unfunded actuarial liability. And we'll take the savings that we will earn from making that payment, the savings of not paying interest, and we'll apply that savings to fill out the $875,000. So whatever the almost $200,000 across all funds doesn't fund of the $875,000 UAL will come from departments. Did I say that well, council members? Okay. I really struggle with trying to figure out how to make that one sound neat and tidy on 3 lines. And then I also recommend transferring up to $4.1 million in budget stabilization reserves for the budget shortfall. And the reason I say up to is we won't actually know exactly what the budget shortfall is until we start closing the books on fiscal year 22-23. So it'll be somewhere around probably September before we have a better idea of how much that transfer will be. But we expect it to be up to $4.1 million. And then we'd also ask that the council reclassify the police department admin manager position to a lieutenant. And with that, I'm open to any further discussion or direction.
Do we have any, thank you, Mr. Morrison, do we have any comments from the public on this item? Any comments from the public on this item?
Yes, could you go back to your slide on, I believe it was additional revenues? It's back a little ways.
Maybe reserves?
Yes. Healthy cities, $8 million. Is that a state grant per se?
No, ma'am. That's money. This is so. Just as a reminder to council and to audience, Healthy Cities Reserve is our best practice way of being prudent, setting aside funds for a catastrophic event. And so these are funds that we have taken. Because the 15% that council requires by policy is 15% of the next adopted budget. So this amount that I show here, 8.6 million, is 15% of the fiscal year 23-24 general fund expenditure budget, which is right around 57 million. And so how we get to that, we get that as the budget increases, that amount has to increase as well to maintain 15%. And so anytime we have a surplus or unused funds from the prior fiscal year, in this case fiscal year 22-23, we will take cash out of unallocated general fund CIP and move it into this designated reserve.
So are there restrictions into how that money is spent?
And
can we use it on affordable housing and homeless population in our community?
So council has full discretion over all general funds, every fund that's listed on this page, and they could make that decision if they were willing to have an even lower savings account for when anything was going to go seriously wrong. So say we might need it to pay during a high water event. We might need it for if there's severe revenue shortfalls. There's all sorts of catastrophic events that happen to cities where we have to continue to keep police officers on the street, firemen in the houses. We have to continue to keep operations running for you, the citizens. I would believe that in most jurisdictions that would take priority over one-time community uses. But to your question, they do have full discretion.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Do we have further comments from the public on this item? Any further public comments? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to council.
Through the mayor?
Yep.
I think it might be meaningful and helpful if we maybe had short presentation from the two chiefs and Mr. Moody, since a lot of what was deferred impacted their departments. I think they're prepared to speak briefly about that, and it might be helpful for those who are watching or who may watch to understand the needs within their departments.
Okay. Who wants to go first? Okay, Chief. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Tonight I'm here to talk to you about some of the items that were recommended for deferral during the ad hoc process. But I'm going to, before I do that, briefly cover the reasons and the rationale and the justifications for those requests. And it goes back to what we do and how we do it. So Yuba City Fire provides fire and rescue services to the city of Yuba City, which is approximately 70,000 individuals. In addition to that, we are the primary fire service provider to a fire district known as a CSAG area, which kind of surrounds Yuba City, which is an additional 8,000 individuals. So that's about 78,000 individuals we provide coverage for. We do that by staffing 5 strategically located stations throughout the city where we provide that coverage with an average response time of 5 minutes and 34 seconds. So as we move forward, we are a very, very busy department, and some of those challenges that we face since we merged with Walton Fire District in 2001, since 2003, our call volume has gone up 111% with no increase in fire stations nor for fire apparatus. So it's the exact same as when we merged in 2001. Station 1 in particular, we're starting to get to a situation, since 2018, they've had a 1,000 increase in call volume since 2018. As a result, as we continue to go forward, we're going to be starting to hit a unsustainable staffing model. At this time, 43% of our call volume is overlapping calls, which means when one incident's occurring, 43% of the time there's another incident occurring, which affects our response times, pulling in engines from different fire districts, which decreases our ability to effectively mitigate our incidents. So as we start to get into that process, you can see where some of these 5 key requests that were recommended for denial. The first one applies to what in 2022 we applied for and were successful in a SAFER grant, which is the Staffing for Adequate Fire and Emergency Response grant. That allowed us to hire 3 individuals at a cost of almost $2 million to add a 4th person on our ladder truck. Council allowed us to hire these 3 individuals as permanent employees. How at the end of the 3-year grant, there is not permanent funds established to maintain those individuals. There is the potential to use those in overhire situations, but that will decrease our overall staffing daily from 17 down to 16. The cost associated with maintaining that permanent funding for that daily staffing is $537,000. Then going back to the concerns that I voiced about specifically Engine 1 and their call volume. When we hit about 4,000 calls, that staffing model is not going to be sustainable. And as a result, you'll need a second apparatus responding out of Station 1. The cost to staff, just the staffing portion of 9 personnel to outfit all 3 shifts is just over $2 million. That also includes overtime costs associated with that. When you implement a new piece of apparatus in regards to the staffing, you also need to make sure that you're outfitting those individuals because they have uniforms, personal protective equipment. Costs associated with that is a little over $107,000. In addition to the staffing and the equipment, you also need to provide them a vehicle to be able to respond to, and specifically looking at a fire engine. The cost associated with a fire engine at this time is $955,000. There's a 36-month lag time or build-out time on a current piece of apparatus. So if we place that order for a Type 1 engine right now, which is what we run at all of our stations outside of Station 3, which is a ladder truck, it'll be 36 months before we receive that. And then finally, once you have that piece of equipment, you have to have a place to house them. And currently, Station 1 was built in 1964. In 1960, the population of Yuba City was 11,000 individuals. So we've increased significantly. And that station was not designed to be a dual house, which is you have two apparatus responding out of it. It does not have the sleeping quarters. It does not have the appropriate accommodations. As a result, we would need to demolish that station and build a new station to house the individuals for 2 engine company and a battalion chief. As a result, the cost associated would be approximately $20 million for that. All of those have a significant lag time, whether it's 2 years from now when engine 1 hits that call volume or 5 years, it's going to occur. And so trying to get out in front of these costs or identify these issues now, because if we wait too long, we'll be behind. Are there any questions?
No question, but through the mayor.
Yeah.
Chief, thank you. I want to make sure that the right message gets out with this because that's a lot of data and there's been a lot of miscommunication in the fire safety in our region over the past few years. But right now, you guys are adequately covering. It's a delicate balance, I'll give it that. But we are covered in the city and CSAG. You're managing it right now.
Yes, correct.
But just to be clear, you're forward looking at the freight train that's coming. It's not a light at the end of the tunnel, it's a freight train. And it is unsustainable in probably 3 to 5 years, best guess.
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure the message is clear that we're not suffering right now on fire, but we're looking at what's coming at in the future.
Yes, projecting down, being strategic and where we're going. This is what we will need, whether it's 2 or 5, but it's coming.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Any comments for the chief? No. Okay.
Evening, Mayor and Council. On the police side of thing, we kind of looked at 2 different issues that are frequently asked of myself and my staff, and then each of you as council members. What are we doing about homeless issues in our community? And then what are we doing about forward-looking to eventually provide police service to the area that's annexed into the city, yet has law enforcement services provided by the Sutter County Sheriff's Office. So as far as the homeless outreach initiatives that we're trying to look forward and get some better assistance with, is a homeless liaison social worker, and that person would work hand in hand with Officer Koski and Officer Rendawa in addressing people's immediate needs to get folks that have the need for service and also have the desire and want for services. And also another community service officer to assist in those endeavors, as well as a vehicle for those folks. And at this time, those were not able to be funded. So moving on to the Beat 6 would be our proposed Beat 6 down in Walton. We're bound currently by the current master tax exchange agreement that was implemented in 2000. So we'd either have to meet some population thresholds or change that agreement before this proposal would be implemented. But we would be looking at adding 6 officers, inclusive of a canine officer, 1 community service officer, and 2 police dispatchers to provide the first initial year 1 cost for vehicles, equipment, much like the fire chief talked about, the safety equipment that all of our folks have to have. We're looking at a cost of right at $2 million with an ongoing cost of right about 1.5. So with that, I'll entertain any questions.
Okay, I think we're good. Thank you, Chief.
Good evening. Just to piggyback on the others, and so regarding Public Works and Utilities, really the takeaway for me are those departments went into this budget knowing there's not a lot of money. And so we really looked at it as to how do we maximize what we have, be efficient, program what we have and what we could deliver. And so on the screen there on the ad hoc deferrals, you don't see a lot of orange, you don't see a lot of blue because the requests weren't big. And so, but of those requests, one of the key items that I want to call out on the personnel side is that based on the special meeting last year on homelessness, staff identified an option to create a beautification team to help businesses and then also to aid the Public Works Department and the Police Department for cleanup activities. And that's basically to designate 4 people with 2 pickup trucks and a dump trailer to be a resource to the community that doesn't take away from the road rehab, from the sidewalk repairs, and then provides that service to the community and to the businesses to be basically have a team of people that are taking care of graffiti, cleanup, encampments, and doing that. And so that was a request that unfortunately was deferred, but I wanted to highlight that was one of the ones that was a key part of the Public Works request. With that, I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Ben, maybe just talk briefly about the roads, because I know that that's one that...
Definitely, and I could talk more about it too with the CIP. But with this, I want to really highlight that with the deferrals listed, we're not even touching on the roads or the potential water and sewer requirements. And so the roads, as talked in the budget study session, we're really needing around $11.5 million a year to stay where we're at. Because of that exponential decline, $11.5 million a year needs to be spent on road rehab. And right now, the funding that's coming in is we're spending about $1 to $1.5 million. So a tenth of what's needed to keep us where we're at, and not even talking about getting up to a state average or to a higher quality of roads. And so that's definitely key. As far as the available funding and what we're going to look at and try to figure out how to make progress in the future.
Thank you, sir.
Through the mayor, if I may, I'd like to make a couple additional comments. Number one, we held a budget workshop on May 23rd, and Chief Alexander, Chief Baker, and Director Moody all did more in-depth presentations related to these specific items. Those presentations and the videos available on the city's website. I also think it's important to just kind of a recap. We had to utilize reserves for this current fiscal year to balance the budget. We're projecting $4.1 million of reserves for next fiscal year. We haven't even got into negotiations. We have a lot of our bargaining unit contracts that expire on June 30th. And for those that don't expire, we have wage reopeners. And so those are some very difficult considerations and deliberations that council is going to have to face in the very near future. The other thing is that the discussion items tonight related to capital acquisition requests, capital improvement program, these are just a small snapshot of the needs within the city. We have, a lot of infrastructure needs of not only facilities. Chief Alexander talked about the age of Fire Station 1. We have a lot of other facilities that have the same needs. And then in regard to homelessness, the suggestions made by our homeless liaison officers, those are kind of the day-to-day in the moment. We still haven't addressed long-term solutions. And we have partners within that, evaluating that. But for the city to be able to come to the table, we have to be able to evaluate and look at what that looks like. And so not only are we trying to address the immediate needs, but then we're also looking at what are the services that the city needs to provide that quality of life and enhance the services that we're already providing. And so that went into a lot of discussion and deliberation of how do we set ourselves up for the future. I don't want to say that it's all doom and gloom, because it's not. We have a lot of things happening, great things happening within Yuba City, including We have a new park that's going to be completed soon. We have the LDS Temple that will be opening up. There's the expectation that that's going to bring a lot of people to our community. We have new hotels that have submitted building permit applications for construction. So those are things that will help us in terms of our sales tax revenues, our property tax revenues. But at this point, they're not projected to be enough to help us break that the deficit that we're facing. And so, these are difficult discussions, difficult decisions and recommendations by the ad hoc, and we appreciate council's participation in this, deeply appreciate staff's time and effort that they put into preparation of the budget, the presentations, and it really has been a group effort to get us to this point. So thank you.
Thank you for that, City Manager. Any further discussion on council?
I'll save mine for the end.
Okay.
Is that the end? I think there's still capital.
Okay.
All right, as stated, this was presented in detail at the last meeting, at the budget study session. Since that meeting, the program was taken to the Planning Commission. And so as part of state law, the Planning Commission is required to review the CIP. I'll get into that in a minute, but as stated, very high level, the CIP, the Capital Improvement Program, it's where we put funding away for those infrastructure projects, those various building projects, road projects, major infrastructure, water and wastewater projects. The huge takeaway right here for me is this is the money that's coming in, and it's not a lot. And so I put it in bold. General fund, 132,000. Unfortunately, that barely puts paint on buildings right now. And so there's not a lot going into that when we have roofs, when we have multiple facilities, and constant need for upkeep. And so very limited this year. The transportation and the streets budgets, together you're a little over 4 million, but that's not straight into rehab. That 4 million breaks out between traffic signals, between striping, between drainage requirements, and then major projects like Bridge Street and Walton where they need matching funds. And so your rehab dollars that really come out of that are about $1.5 million. And again, that's where we have this growing need of close to $12 million, $11.5 million a year to stay where we're at. And I'm only able, based on the revenues coming in, to put about $1.5 million out. Your development impact fees, we're not programming any currently. The federal grants, they vary. We're not planning on any new funding for this cycle. And then you have some of the bigger projects down here, the 3.43. But unfortunately, these aren't a lot either. And I don't want to come off all doom and gloom, but to be real, I have $100 million worth that we've talked of projects for the next 5 to 10 years in wastewater to meet regulations and requirements, and I'm spending $3 million. So really, I need to be spending about $10 million a year, and right now I'm spending $3 million a year. And that goes to the same for the water, regarding a water master plan that says I need $50 to $60 million worth of improvements over 5 years, and I'm spending less than a third of it. So that's the high-level takeaway. I'd be happy to go into specific detail about that. And with that Planning Commission review, regarding acquisition of land, deposition of land, street vacations, and authorization of construction of public buildings. They do a review of that just to make sure we're in compliance with the city's general plan. And with that, they found that the projects are consistent with the Yuba City general plan. And I'd be happy to answer any questions or go into detail on the projects.
Looks like we're good. Thank you, gentlemen. I would like to say, I would like to acknowledge all the staff's long hours and hard work on this. I did have a quick couple of questions for Mr. Morrison. You mentioned the sales tax being flat projections. I seem to remember an email that went through that essentially that mirrors the national average. Is that correct?
Mr. Mayor, at the very least, the state.
The state, okay. So it's not just this community, it's other communities experiencing the same post-COVID lack of funding, if you would. Just to talk a little bit more about the revenue ad hoc, the budget ad hoc process on this, is we took a look at every department, including councils, and I think that reflects a certain amount of fiscal responsibility and awareness of what we are, where we are at, and potentially where we are going with that. So, and you did bring that up earlier. I just wanted to highlight. Do we have any further comments from council on this?
You want to go last, brother? Okay. Through the mayor. I'm going to reiterate what you've already said, and I want to thank the staff and everybody put in, because it's not 30 hours, 40 hours. If you add up all the hours that's gone in, there's hundreds of hours and thought that's gone into this. And I sat on the budget ad hoc 3 of the last 4. This is the first year I've rolled off of it. And I know what goes in, and I know the hard work. So first of all, thank you guys. Do we have a lot going on in Yuba City? Yes, we do. Do we have a bright future ahead of us? Yes, we do. Did we do the right things during COVID? Yes, we did. Because you can step back and you can watch other municipalities that laid employees off, or they haven't been able to take care of their basic necessities, and other municipalities across the state of what they needed to do, because they basically operated, the best way to describe it is out of emotion instead of logic. And it was a tough thing for us to do, but I'm very proud of the work that we did during that. Mr. Morrison, you're more optimistic than I am with where we're going. We had this discussion at the workshop. When you look at our nation and where the economy is at, we have high inflation. We have rising interest rates. The feds will find out in another week what they're going to do, whether they're going to flatten for a while or whether they're going to go up another quarter BIP. We did have the technical definition of a recession a while back, and then it's kind of flattened a little bit, not tremendously, but the GDP is no longer negative, but it's barely positive. But when our constituents go to the grocery store, they go to the gas station, they go to buy school clothes for their kids or put them in extracurricular activities, it hurts. And all that trickles down, and that's going to trickle down to that sales tax, which I stated last time. My opinion of the sales tax is I think we're not going to see a rise. It's actually going to decrease, because in my opinion right now, the only thing that's got it propped is inflation. Because if you look at the dollars spent, they're more because of inflation. It's not that the average person is out there spending like they did during COVID. So thank you for basically keeping it flat, and I'm comfortable with that. I would have gone negative, but we had that discussion a couple of weeks ago. This is a tough thing. I commend the ad hoc committee, because I can see all of the needs. We've talked about this. Something that changed, I know, 4 years ago when we started this. The first round in that ad hoc committee, and I believe, Councilmember McGarty, it was you and I that first year. I think, it was me and Sean. That's right. Okay. Councilmember Harris, we came in, and at that point in time, the real focus was 12 months down the line versus 5 years down the line. And we started moving that pendulum with our E-team here and really looking more down the line, and I'll streamline this into one area, and that's what you talked about with salary savings and reduction. One thing that we had to change is quit hiring for people that are budgeted and jobs that are budgeted, and start making the budget hire the people we need to get the job done to take care of our constituents. And so we started aligning that. And that's where you saw a lot of the reclassifications and stuff over the several years come in. And that's where it's led to less salary savings, but we're taking care of the city. I wish that I had just an unlimited checkbook, and if somebody wants to go win the lottery a couple of times, we might be able to get there. But we would love to do all of this. And you guys had a very tough job. I worry about the safety of our community. You want to know what keeps us up at night? That's one thing that keeps me up at night. I remember the pandemic when it hit. It wasn't, a lot of things. It was, I was looking at the panic and the fear in our constituents' faces with the unknown. We get back to, why in the world do we have 15%? That 15% is like your savings account. If, pardon the French, if all hell breaks loose, you got to have a piggy bank to go draw from. And that's really what that is, and that's prudent. And again, we've talked, that's less than what I'm comfortable with, but that's the current policy of the council. We're going to have to deal with these cuts, I think, at this time, as far as when I say cuts, not giving everything that we really need. But we're going to have to figure out that path over the next couple of years. Because I don't think any of the five of us want to go back where we were a few years ago and hearing those words, do more with less. I don't really think we want to go there. We want to do the best job that we can with adequate resources, and we have to be physically responsible going forward. And I think that's what's really got us to this point. So I want to say I appreciate all your hard work and your team, the entire city staff, and the ad hoc committee for basically pulling the blinds back or the curtain open and letting us know, as I said earlier, it's not the light at the end of the tunnel. If we don't do the appropriate things, there's a freight train coming, but we can miss the freight train if we do the appropriate actions over the next several years. You look at Yuba City, and it is growing. I mean, you looked at the quality of life. You look at the new park that's opening and the excitement around that. I've heard more about the pump track, and I still don't even really know what a pump track is, but I've heard more about that and how people are really jazzed about that. I guess you do, sir. I keep hearing about new businesses come to town. I was just talking to the management over at our mall, and they're constantly recruiting new businesses, and that's huge for our city because, there was a time people just thought, oh, it's just Yuba City. Now it's like they really want to come here and do business with us. They want to be part of our community. So I think we've got bright days ahead of us. I'm optimistic. I think we need to go with what you guys have prescribed. It's not optimal, but I think that is the best course. And, we've got to figure this out over the next couple of years. And back to your point, ma'am, with homelessness, that is a statewide problem. And I say state because it's, I think California has the largest population of homeless individuals in the nation. That is a problem that's been forced upon us, I think, by our leadership at the state, with how they've tied our hands and done different things and expected us to do things which pull from our general fund, pulls from all municipalities' general fund. And then the latest budget revision from the state, they were talking about cutting funds to various things, but yet they expect us to continue on. So we're threading the needle. At the end of the day, we want the best for our community. We want to go forward. And I'll just leave it at that. Great job thus far, guys. And but we've got a lot of work in the next couple of years, I think. So I'll leave it with that.
Thank you, sir.
All right, I'll be quick. I think, as I mentioned at the beginning, it was very important for the ad hoc committee to actually and factually work with staff to determine costs. If we're going to go out and do the job of a city, we owe it to our citizens to be able to quantify and explain why we spend what we spend, how we prioritize that. And as the city manager mentioned, those things that we aren't able to fund right now, make some explanations as to why. And those aren't easy decisions. And Councilperson Shaw, as you mentioned, those weren't easy. It was not easy for us to sit back and go, okay, what do we do? Because we would like to do it all, but we do not have the financial ability to do that. And if we are fiscally responsible, which this council certainly is and has been, we're not going to spend money foolishly. That's just not something that I think that we have done. I think the citizens of Yuba City need and deserve to know exactly what we are spending on and what the actual costs of those are. and on a go-forward basis, what's the benefit or the return on those investments. So if we decide to spend money on something, and let's just use the fire department, obviously, kind of near and dear. Why are we even considering another engine company? Well, response times save lives. Our response times are threatened to be compromised because of the volume of calls that they are seeing. I could go through each one of the departments, all the roads, et cetera, and go through that. As you mentioned, Councilman Shaw, it's our responsibility now to plan for the future. Staff has done a huge job in not only forecasting what's needed for the future, but also what we need to do today. I think what we have before you to consider today meets our current needs. There's always more that we would want to do, but we also have the ability now to understand what is in front of us. And I would also echo the city manager's comments. There's a lot of good things coming in Yuba City. We can sit here and be a little moany and groany, if you will, about what we don't have. But fortunately, we do have growth. We do have interest. We do have a citizenry that's one of the best, I think, in the state in regards to coming together as well. So with that, I want to thank the council for providing me the opportunity and the confidence to go through the budget with the mayor. And I will also, again, don't want to do this without real meaning, so I really do mean this. Spencer, Deanna, Amarjeet, all the department heads, you guys did a fantastic job this year and something that we tasked you to do, and I really do appreciate it. And I do, as a representative of the citizens, they may not know the work that you did, but I guarantee you, if anyone asks, I'm going to be telling them exactly how proud I am and how professional you guys were as we deal with these budget issues. So thank you.
Okay, we'll bring it back to council for action.
Through the mayor. I move that we adopt a resolution approving the proposed fiscal year 2023-2024 operating budget and adopt a resolution approving the fiscal year 2023-2024 capital improvement program project summaries by funding source that are attached to the resolution, and adopt a resolution approving the city's appropriations limit for fiscal year 23-24.
So I got a motion by Councilmember Shaw and a second from the Vice Mayor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Morrison. Business item 20, Citywide Governance Resolution. This is presented by our city manager in conjunction with Mr. Mark Boomgarner, our council member.
You want me to go first? Yeah, okay. Thank you, Mayor. One of the things that occurred with Yuba City was the determination, and decision to move into districts. This wasn't something that just came out of nowhere. This was basically a state requirement, and it's been a long night, so I forget the exact bill or whatever it was that caused us to have to go into districts. But one of the things that was a constant theme as we transition into districts is, what does this mean for the city? And are all 5 council people going to be representing now just the city, or are they going to represent their special districts? And as you might imagine, there's a lot of questions about, okay, if a council person's elected in District 1, is all they're concerned about is what happens in District 1? Do they care what happens in the other districts within the city? So while I have no reservations about how I believe this council handles that, because I know these gentlemen and I know they are committed to the entire city, including the districts that they represent. But I do think that it is appropriate, as have other jurisdictions that have moved to districts, to establish, if you will, a code of conduct or an understanding that elected personnel in the city of Yuba City represent the entire city. And with that, I will hand this off to our city manager.
All right, thank you. So as Councilmember Boomgarden noted, in 2022, we transitioned to council districts. As part of the November 2022 election, council members in districts 1, 2, and 3 were elected. And in the 2024 election, council members in districts 4 and 5 will be elected. So as part of that, Councilmember Boomgarden brought this forward, and there are kind of 8 guiding principles that are part of this policy. Basically, what this policy states is that council members will represent the entire city, not just their individual district, and that is in regard to financial decisions, participation in community events, utilization of best management practices. And one of the key things that I want to point out is item 8, because this addresses Councilmember Boomgarden's concern, is that this policy will direct the city clerk to include this resolution in materials prepared for new city council candidates and as part of city council member onboarding materials. I received a lot of questions related to this. Well, isn't this just common sense? Don't people just know that if you are elected to city council, that even though you're elected by district, that you represent the entire city? Well, this makes sure that candidates understand that this is the policy of the city council and that it is a requirement to represent the entire city, not just the district. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that. Do we have any comments from the public on this item? Any public comments? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to council.
Through the mayor?
Yes, sir.
Having come from a culture in a previous life of being in districts for the Yuba Community College District, this was something that was adopted by the chancellor in our training, that people, because of districts, a lot of the time become very parochial in their thinking, and we fought against that tremendously and trained it out of all of us. And so to bring this, Councilman Baumgartner, it's needed, just so people know that it's right there in their face. Don't build your little walls in your silos and not make the right decisions. So with that, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Well put.
Just one short comment. I was the isn't this common sense? Isn't this what we're supposed to be doing? Mark, thanks for bringing it forward, because I was reminded as we went through this, but before we went to districts, there were members of this council, not the current but prior council, that, oh, I want something on my street, or I want something one street over, and would bring, projects through. And so I think we're only going to be here for a few more years. And I think this sets the precedent to know that the future members of this council do the right thing and keep their head focused on they represent the whole city. They may live in a district, but they represent the whole city. So thanks.
Thank you. Okay. I would like to thank the city manager and Councilmember Boomgarden for bringing this forward. If the public has any questions on what districts look like in Yuba City, you can go on our website, yubacity.net. There is a drop-down menu, and it's very user-friendly. It'll show you exactly where you are in relationship with the districts. If you have any questions, I recommend you go to that. Or you could ask any of the individuals up here. And this has been a kind of a learning process, districting, and we're kind of working our way through this. I guess this is a way of making sure a council member in the future just doesn't go, hey, it's not my problem, not my district. So that's sorely needed. So I'm glad this was brought forward. And having said that, I'll bring it back to council for action.
All right, through the mayor. Mm-hmm. Do I change this and use the words common sense in this?
Yeah, I wish you would. I wish you would.
I move that we adopt a resolution approving and establishing a citywide governance policy for elected officials.
I've got a motion from Councilmember Shaw.
Second.
And a second from Councilmember Pasquale. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you, City Manager. Moving to future agenda items. This is an opportunity to discuss with City Manager about items that came up in the meeting this evening that you would like to have brought back to council at a later date. Do we have any comments from the public? Yes.
Thank you. As you have heard before, we had members of the community bring forth Bill SB 403, and I just wanted to know if the information that you heard tonight would be enough for the council to possibly make a decision of a resolution, or if it would be better for us to come back with it as an agenda item.
I think this is something that probably needs further conversation, doesn't it, City Attorney?
Just so you know, because it's not on the agenda item tonight, you can't really have that discussion.
Mm-hmm.
There may be opportunities for the city manager or somebody else to reach out, depending on what that would look like.
Okay. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I just wanted to confirm.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments on the public on this item or future items? Seeing none. Okay, reports and communications. The following reports and communication items are provided for the council's information. No action can be taken on items under this section unless the council agrees to it in a subsequent agenda. City manager's report.
So just a couple of items. Ashley Potochnik will be at the next council meeting to do a presentation again on Open Counter. It is now live. So if you go to the website, it's live. But she will do a presentation. Also, a shop talk is scheduled for retail business owners for Tuesday, June 13th at Bridge Coffee at 7 a.m. And then also just a reminder that the summer stroll is scheduled for June 17th. So thank you.
Thank you. City council reports. This evening, we are going to begin with Councilmember Boomgarden.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Really quick, most of the last few weeks have been dealing with budget study sessions. Did attend the police officers' memorial ceremony. They're not here anymore, but anyway, they did a great job over there. Several meetings, nothing really of super note. Housing Authority or Children's and Families, though both agencies are doing good things. Did attend the push-in of Engine 1. I do appreciate the traditions that are happening in the fire department. And it's nice to see the energy and the enthusiasm and the morale about the new equipment, which I know is going to serve the community well. And finally, did have the opportunity through an invite to attend the River Valley High School graduation, and was pleased to see that the Falcon actually returned this year. So that was a thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Pasquale.
Thank you, Mayor. Was at the Air Quality Control Committee for the river. We adopted our budget for the year. A lot of unknowns because of the budget revises that's going on. There's going to be a lot less grant money to clean our air, for whatever reason. I, too, attended the police officers' memorial, which was done very, very well. I was very impressed with that. Yuba City High School graduation on the 2nd. I was class of 1975. I was the 52nd of that 100-year number that they've hit. And yes, we did find the culprits that shot the illegal fireworks off on my street. So with that, I have nothing more.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll keep it really brief. First of all, thank you to Chief Alexander and the fire department for allowing me to be a part of the push-in ceremony. It was my honor to do that, and as he said, I love what you guys are creating. So attended the DBA meeting, and everything they had there is all about the upcoming stroll, and very encouraged with all of our city staff that was at that meeting and how it's all coming together. So keep up the great work there. The other thing we had, not city related, but community related, I'm tied in with helping put on the event. This year, the number, we don't have the final, but it's somewhere between 40 and 50,000 that was raised. And the 3 recipients of that, number 1 is going to be trauma intervention, so TIP. Second is going to be our Canine Officers Association. And third is the Wheatland Baseball Program. So they'll all be receiving funds from that. And that's great that one of our own comes back every year and does that concert and helps us raise money. Attended a Grateful Nation out at Calvary. Great job. As the mayor said earlier, and there's a part in that, I encourage you to attend if you never had. There's a part that you can tell where the veterans are in there because you can hear the tears flowing. So it's really a moving service. I will be out on the next council meeting, June 20th, as I will be at a professional continuing education event out of state for a few days. Thank you to the council for covering for me. I've had some family emergencies the last few weeks, and so they've stepped up. I was on schedule to go to River Valley's graduation, but had a phone call come in, I think it was around 2:30, 3 o'clock, and reached out, and the mayor was able to attend in my absence. So thank you guys for all stepping in, and that's it.
Thank you, sir. Vice Mayor Harris.
All right, thank you very much. A lot of busy stuff going on lately. Primarily the events at SACOG, we were, as a result of, the value of a presence down there, for the city to have a presence down on the board down at SACOG in Sacramento, and the relationships that result from that, the networking and whatnot. But most importantly, where the real work gets done, the nuts and bolts, is down at the staff level. A lot of work gets done, a lot of communication goes on, a lot of talking and jockeying for position. As a result, the Yuba Sutter area, we received over $22 million for various projects in our community. Yuba City specifically received money to improve some much-needed areas of Garden Highway, and then also a little bit of money, well, over $100,000 for the entrance signs to our city. So as people come into the town, into our city, they'll be able to see something that's representative and nice looking as they enter. So that was all very good, and again, as a result of a lot of work, a lot of planning, and you'll also see some other stuff going on over in Yuba County and Sutter County as well. Also a SACOG, we have on June 16th, we have what they call a blueprint event. It's going to be held down at the community center down in Folsom. And essentially it's an interactive meeting designed to provide input for the direction of what types of projects and where they go throughout the 6-county region. So it's one of those, you either at the table or on the menu type thing. So of course I'll be there. I believe our mayor is going to join me down there as well. And so we'll be able to, it's not necessarily what we talked about, a funding round working group where we decide how funds are allocated, the formula, if you will, but what they're going to be used for. And so we're looking forward to having that conversation. And again, it's going to be a lot of, as they say, robust discussions involving that. So we're looking forward to that. And of course, as we had talked about, I attended the budget workshop, which was very informative and a result of a lot of work where Spencer and your staff have clearly put hours and hours in thought into, as well as my colleagues on the budget ad hoc. It doesn't just happen, and it's always difficult to do and prioritize things. You can definitely see a need, but you can't afford to pay for even the needs. And so that's what we get paid for, is to make those decisions. But I much appreciated, and that's it for me.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, I attended the Police Officers Memorial this year, which is always well attended, and staff did an amazing job to a very somber event every year. Thank you. Transit, I attended Transit. As we talked about earlier, it's just about the transition of Mr. Martin and bringing in his replacement, and also finding the balance of the $50 million that's needed for the new facility out in Linda. Attended a business connection breakfast in Live Oak and got the latest and greatest of what was happening in Live Oak. I was attended at Beale Air Force Base. It was a family, it was that billed as a family gathering event out at Beale Air Force Base. United Way, helped out at the United Way event at Sam Brannan Park. Attended a ribbon cutting at RT Quality RV, which is out there on Pease and Live Oak. It's got an amazing facility out there now. Also, Bare Beauty Skin ribbon cutting over on Richland was invited to speak at Sutter High School and address Fight Apathy, and it's the debate team. So I spoke to, it was a fundraiser, spoke to the group about fighting apathy. Also was invited to speak at Lincoln School. I think Councilmember Shaw did that last year. Is that right? And spoke to leadership, 4th and 5th graders. That was exciting. Attended the budget workshop. Also was on the radio, 93Q, talked about Public Works Department. Attended the Tyler Rich event. And thank you for the invite, Councilmember Shaw, for that. I was honored to attend the Punjab Festival. I know there's probably a different term for that, but it's a Punjab Festival at the fairgrounds. It's the 27th year for that amazing event. Weather was perfect. I hope the whole community comes out next year. I really had a lot of fun. It was really well attended. Beautiful event. Also, another ribbon cutting at PJ's Auto Body over by the DMV. Lastly, I attended both graduations, the River Valley graduation, and yes, the Falcon did come back this year. And then lastly, I attended my alma mater's centennial graduation, which was really exciting. They had a T-38 flyover at exactly two T-38, excuse me. It's exactly 7:48. Amazing how they can do that. But it was really well attended. It was my pleasure to be invited to both of those events. And with that, this meeting is adjourned.